The ongoing conflict in Ukraine is not merely a regional dispute, it is a crisis that exposes the deep-seated geopolitical fault lines that divide Europe. At the heart of this conflict lies Russia's long-held anxieties about the eastward expansion of NATO and the European Union. From Moscow's perspective, these Western institutions pose an existential threat, encroaching upon its sphere of influence and undermining its security interests. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, NATO has expanded eastward, incorporating former Soviet republics and Warsaw Pact members into its security umbrella. This expansion, while presented as a defensive measure, has been perceived by Russia as a betrayal of assurances made during the reunification of Germany. The EU too has extended its reach eastward, offering economic integration and political cooperation to former Soviet satellites. This westward shift in Ukraine's political and economic orientation has been met with alarm in Moscow. For Russia, Ukraine holds immense strategic significance, serving as a crucial buffer state between Russia and the West. This makes Ukraine's pivot towards the West particularly sensitive, striking at the core of Russia's security concerns and feeding its fears of encirclement by hostile forces. The Kremlin views the West's engagement with Ukraine as a zero-sum game, where any gain for the West is perceived as a loss for Russia. This perception has fueled tensions and created a climate of mistrust, ultimately contributing to the outbreak of the current conflict. Ukraine's geopolitical significance extends beyond its role as a buffer state. Situated at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, Ukraine occupies a strategic location of immense economic and energy security importance. Its vast, fertile plains have earned it the moniker breadbasket of Europe, highlighting its role as a major agricultural producer and exporter. Furthermore, Ukraine is traversed by a network of pipelines that transport Russian natural gas to European markets. This makes Ukraine a critical energy transit hub, giving it significant leverage over Russia's energy exports. Control over Ukrainian territory and infrastructure grants Russia the ability to influence European energy supplies, a potent tool in its geopolitical arsenal. Beyond energy, Ukraine boasts significant reserves of natural resources, including iron ore, coal, titanium, and manganese. These resources are essential for various industries, making Ukraine an attractive economic partner for both Russia and the West. The competition for access to and control over these resources has further fueled tensions between the two sides. Ukraine's potential as a large and diversified economy adds another layer to its strategic importance. A successful democratic Ukraine integrated with the West could serve as a powerful model for other post-Soviet states, potentially inspiring pro-democracy movements within Russia itself. This prospect is viewed with great concern by the Kremlin, which fears the erosion of its own authority and influence in the region. The seeds of the current conflict were sown in 2014 when Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula, a move that shocked the international community and set the stage for further unrest. Russia's actions didn't stop there. They also supported separatist movements in eastern Ukraine, fueling the flames of discord and division. The annexation of Crimea, a predominantly Russian-speaking region with deep historical ties to Russia, was met with widespread international condemnation. This act triggered a wave of sanctions against Russia, isolating it further on the global stage. Moscow justified its actions by claiming that the annexation was an act of self-determination by the Crimean people who had voted overwhelmingly in favor of joining Russia in a hastily organized referendum. However, the legitimacy of the referendum was widely criticized. It was conducted under the shadow of Russian military occupation and lacked credible international monitoring, casting doubt on its fairness. Concurrent with the annexation of Crimea, pro-Russian separatist movements erupted in the eastern Ukrainian regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, collectively known as the Donbas. These regions became hotbeds of conflict and unrest. These separatist movements, allegedly supported by Russian troops and weaponry, sought to secede from Ukraine and align themselves with Russia, further complicating the already tense situation. The conflict in Donbas escalated into a protracted and bloody war, claiming the lives of thousands and displacing millions more. The humanitarian crisis that ensued was devastating. Despite multiple attempts at a ceasefire, the fighting continued unabated, with both sides accusing each other of violating the truce. the region remained a volatile and dangerous place. The Minsk agreements, a set of accords aimed at ending the conflict, failed to achieve a lasting peace. The agreements were marred by mutual distrust and frequent violations. These events in 2014 marked a significant turning point in Russia-Ukraine relations, shattering any pretense of amicable coexistence and plunging the two nations into a state of open hostility and conflict. The annexation of Crimea and the ongoing conflict in Donbas became the prelude to the wider war that would engulf Ukraine in 2022, a conflict that would have far-reaching consequences for the entire region and beyond. Section 4. The West's response sanctions and their impact on Russia. The international community, particularly the United States and the European Union, responded to Russia's actions in Ukraine with a series of economic sanctions. These measures were designed to send a strong message to the Kremlin, signaling that aggressive actions would not be tolerated on the global stage. These sanctions targeted key sectors of the Russian economy, including finance, energy, and defense, aiming to cripple Russia's ability to wage war and pressure the Kremlin to change course. By focusing on these critical areas, the sanctions sought to weaken Russia's economic foundation and military capabilities. The sanctions imposed on Russia have had a multifaceted impact on the country's economy. They have not only affected large corporations and government finances, but also trickled down to the everyday lives of Russian citizens. The Russian ruble experienced a sharp decline in value, leading to inflation and a decrease in purchasing power for ordinary Russians. This devaluation has made imported goods more expensive, further straining household budgets. Access to international financial markets was severely restricted, limiting Russia's ability to raise capital and finance its operations. This financial isolation has hindered investment and growth, creating a challenging environment for businesses. Moreover, sanctions targeting the energy sector, a cornerstone of the Russian economy, have sought to reduce Russia's energy revenues. The energy sector, being a major source of income, has been particularly hard hit, affecting both state and private enterprises. However, the effectiveness of these sanctions has been limited by Europe's continued reliance on Russian energy imports. Despite efforts to diversify energy sources, many European countries still depend on Russian gas and oil. Nevertheless, the threat of further sanctions and the potential for a complete energy embargo have cast a long shadow over Russia's economic prospects. The uncertainty surrounding future sanctions has created an atmosphere of instability and caution. While the full impact of the sanctions remains to be seen, it is evident that they have taken a toll on the Russian economy. Businesses have closed, unemployment has risen, and economic growth has slowed significantly. However, the sanctions have also had the unintended consequence of bolstering support for the Kremlin among some segments of the Russian population. The perception of external threats has rallied people around their government. The narrative of a besieged fortress resisting Western aggression has resonated with some, reinforcing a sense of national unity and defiance. This sentiment has been leveraged by the Kremlin to maintain domestic support and justify its policies. Section 5. Echoes of Empire Russia's historical and cultural claims to Ukraine. To comprehend the current conflict's depth, one must delve into Russia's historical and cultural narratives surrounding Ukraine. These narratives are deeply rooted in centuries of shared history, culture, and geopolitical ambitions. These narratives, often intertwined with notions of shared ancestry, religion, and language, underpin Russia's claims to a special relationship with Ukraine. The Eastern Orthodox Church, for instance, plays a significant role in this shared cultural and religious heritage. Moscow frequently invokes the shared roots of the Russian and Ukrainian people, pointing to the medieval kingdom of Kievan Rus as a common historical foundation. This period is often romanticized as a golden age of unity and strength. This shared heritage, according to the Russian narrative, binds the two nations together in an unbreakable bond. The cultural and historical ties are presented as a justification for political and territorial claims. The Kremlin portrays Ukraine's westward orientation as a betrayal of this shared history, a severance from its rightful place within the Russian world. This perspective is used to frame Ukraine's European aspirations as a threat to regional stability. Furthermore, Russia has sought to leverage the presence of a significant Russian-speaking population in eastern Ukraine to advance its interests. This demographic is often depicted as culturally and politically aligned with Russia, by portraying Russian speakers as a persecuted minority in need of protection. Moscow has sought to justify its intervention in Ukrainian affairs. This narrative has been used to legitimize military actions and political pressure. This narrative has been particularly effective in mobilizing support for the separatist movements in Donbass. The conflict in this region is often framed as a struggle for the rights and identity of the Russian-speaking population. However, it is crucial to acknowledge the complexities of Ukrainian identity, which cannot be reduced to a mere extension of Russian culture. Ukraine's national identity is multifaceted and deeply rooted in its own unique history. Ukraine boasts its own distinct language, traditions, and historical experiences, shaped by centuries of interactions with various cultures and empires. This rich tapestry of influences has forged a strong sense of national identity. The Euromaidan Revolution of 2014, which ousted the pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych, was a testament to the strength of Ukrainian national consciousness and its aspiration for a future independent of Russian influence. This pivotal moment highlighted the desire of many Ukrainians to align more closely with Europe and assert their sovereignty.